Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, chapter 159. When we last left our heroes, we really focused on the Laguna versus Ijuna fight, as Laguna was largely unable to get any real damage in on Ijuna, and Ijuna told him why she ended up betraying Oasis and joining Shura, that she was captured in some mission, horribly tortured. I'm glad we did not actually get visuals on the kinds of torture Ijuna endured. But just hearing about it was bad, as even Laguna tells her to stop, you can't take any more. And at some point, she saw the red string of destiny between her and Shura, and she's always been this big believer in destiny, and so she kind of binds her fate with him. How exactly that's tied into her ether gear, whether she, accidentally bound herself to Shura, intentionally bound herself to Shura, it's a little bit unclear. I'm leaning towards an accidental binding, but we don't quite know. Anyway, Shiki and the gang make it to Shura, and they say they're too late, which has been maybe permanently destroyed. She could be repaired. We don't know how bad the damage is yet, but Shiki is ready to fight. So let's jump right on into chapter 159, The Strings of Unbreakable Bonds. So despite last week's cliffhanger focusing on Shiki and Shura, that line about strings makes me think this is going to be going back to Ijuna. Our picture here is like on a magazine cover. Maybe it's Element is the magazine. Laguna's face is kind of covering a couple of letters. It could be M-E. But it's Laguna and a couple of women posing on this magazine cover. We see like a lipstick ad, Heart Cruise. It's honestly a pretty unique cover. And it fits sort of Laguna's more recent past, post-Oasis past, which at some point I'm going to have to actually work out when he went from resistance fighter to Draken crony to actor and how exactly all of that fits together. But that's a question for another time. We open right where we left off, actually, with Shura standing over Witch's, at least, I'm going to say disabled for now, body. Shiki and Rebecca in shock. Shura just kind of grins at them. Witch lies there, lifeless. Rebecca, covers her mouth in horror. Pino and Happy are in total shock. And Shiki is in a rage. Runs at him. Shura! And Shura just grins at him. Grin going wider as Shiki approaches. And Shiki tries to punch him, and Shura kind of deflects it off, I think, with his gravity. But there's this huge clash between the two of them. Just the metal on the walls is going flying. The devastation is pretty huge. Rebecca's blown back. As are Pino and Happy. Beep! But then the beep is actually not Pino reacting to the air blast. It's her noticing, picking up life readings from Miss Witch. She's still alive. So going back to I'm going to bring up Valkyrie for a sec, because the anime just got to Valkyrie, and I'm very much kind of thinking about that right now. And there's that bit where Pino mentions her core is deactivated. That's the same thing as death for a human. And clearly that hasn't happened to Witch. But also, Witch looks more beat up than Valkyrie did. As I recall, Valkyrie was largely, structurally, what's an adjective version of integrity? She was, largely stable. She had, the missing eye and the crack in the face, but her body was, intact. Witch is missing part of her side, but somehow Valkyrie's core is stable and Valkyrie's core was disabled and Witch's is not. So I don't quite know what exactly makes a bot die, but either way, Witch has not died. And Shiki notes that. I think his rage maybe calms down a tad bit. And as Couch Pose reminded us earlier in the arc, being consumed by rage is not smart. Anyway, Rebecca kind of takes heart at that and runs over to Witch. Witch, hang in there! And we see Witch is actually still conscious. Weak, but conscious. I am terribly sorry. I am the shield of Edens. I should not have let this... and Happy tells her, you're badly hurt. And Witch goes on, my locomotion unit and visual sensors are damaged. Oh, she can't see. Her eyes are kind of whited out. Yeah, she's blind right now. But Rebecca just picks her up and turns to run. Don't worry. We're taking you back to the ship. We'll get you there, I promise. No, Rebecca, I think you have to stay here. Shiki did not win against Shura last time. I think that Shiki's going to need more than just himself against Shura. I'm going back to, the Doryu fight in Brave Master. And maybe the Hades fight in Fairy Tail. I don't remember if Natsu ever tried to one-on-one Hades, but I do remember Hades was won by all of Fairy Tail working together. And I don't think Shura is going to go down without at least something of a team-up. At least more than just Shiki. Either way, Rebecca turns to leave. We'll get you there, I promise. But Witch stops her. But first you must destroy the All-Link system. It is inside this facility. And Rebecca tells her, got it. So yeah, All-Link is here. And Rebecca is staying, at least for now, if not like helping Shiki out with the fight, is at least going to try to stop the All-Link system, help out in a different way. Anyway, Pino says, Mr. Laguna should be nearby. And Happy chimes in, let's meet up with him. And Rebecca calls Shiki. And Shiki is still basically just as angry. Maybe a little less angry now that he knows Witch is alive, but still absolutely furious. To an extent that couch post scene keeps ringing in my mind. I'm gonna crush this guy. And Rebecca, visibly shudders at that, which again, makes me think that his anger is going to lead him wrong. Maybe it will take, 3 attempts on Shura. Shiki will lose again here, and it'll have to be a team-up to beat Shura. I still think it's gonna have to be more than just Shiki. That's still my theory. But there's this bit... Oh, okay, so I was a little bit confused. I understood. I thought that it is inside this facility meant it is inside the room. But Witch is saying we can't leave the building yet because All-Link is somewhere here. Which is why Rebecca is still turning to leave, going to join up with Ijuna. Or with Laguna. Though Laguna is a little bit busy. Either way, we last left off with Rebecca kind of shuddering in fear at Shiki. And Shura taunts him, the only thing getting crushed around here is your head, Shiki. And then we come back to Ijuna and Laguna. And Ijuna is still kind of stomping on Laguna's head and continuing, Prince Shura doesn't know love. That is what makes him strong. He will take a life without a moment's hesitation. And she starts up her ether gear. I'm curious if that's the more, physical binding strings or if that's the love strings. Maybe get Laguna on her side, maybe? No, I think it's more just binding him up. And specifically tightening a noose around his... I don't want to say a noose, but tightening the string around his neck to, choke him out. I need to learn from his example. You see, she, pulls on the string to tighten it. Goodbye, Laguna. And she chops his head right off. I don't think it worked. I think... No, because we see... I'm looking at Laguna at the top of the page, on page 8. And we see what I think we're supposed to take as sweat, but at least... There's one sweat drop on each side of his face that could come from his tear ducts. I think he's about to tear his lover himself. I think that's how he's getting out of this. Because, I'm trying to... No, I was looking at the stump, and maybe there's a bit of, what could be water there, but it's also probably blood. Either way, I don't think Laguna's dying like that. Yet, I was right. Turns into water. Exactly his plan. Shocking Ijuna. Water? What the... And Laguna, speaking from a puddle, says... My ether gear turns people into water if they shed tears. And Ijuna's shocked. Are you saying you made yourself cry? And Laguna, I love this shot of Laguna's hand emerging from the puddle. I was technically an actor, even if nobody'd heard of me. Now we're going back to that actor past. When does that fit in? If he only left Oasis to get stronger, it would make sense he would leave Oasis and go straight to Draken. But the implication when we saw his acting in Red Cave was that after Draken fell, he went back to acting. That was the vibe I got, back to what he was doing beforehand. So I still think there's some part of Laguna's story that we don't know. Especially as an actor, he might be lying to Oasis on some level. I do believe he wants to bring down Nero. I just think he's working for something else as well. I don't know what. I'm still just thinking back to that scene from Foresta. Either way, even if nobody had heard of me. Whipping up tears is acting 101. Now maybe that's why I never got any parts in college. I cannot cry on a whim. Either way, he then lunges up and whacks Ijuna upside the face. Also, I don't think he really needs to fake cry. One of his best friends from his past is has joined the enemy and is describing her horrible torture. He doesn't need to fake cry, but apparently that's at least what he's saying he did. Whether or not he's lying or not, again, he is acting. Is questionable. Either way, Ijuna kind of back, and then summons some more strings, points them at something. String needle. Oh no, she's like shooting them at Laguna. Sorry, again, those names are too fucking similar. And Laguna just kind of dodges them all, and he kind of lands on his feet. So, Highness, I don't remember you being an Ether Gear user back in Oasis. I don't remember you using an Ether Gear. There we go. Back in Oasis. And Ijuna tells him, I learned it in the Empire, which builds more onto my theory that when she saw that red string of destiny, she was like somehow subconsciously using her Ether Gear for the first time, and that's what's bound her to Shura. That's still my theory. I learned it in the Empire. I tie people together with bonds of love. If the string is cut, they hate each other. Red destiny. The perfect power for me. And Laguna looks at her. I see. I'm finally starting to get it. You're not a bad actor yourself. And Ijuna's stunned there. What? And Laguna goes on. Abducted by the Empire. Spent days in agony. Then, whether you meant to or not, you tied a string. There we go. Just what I was saying. It's an accidental use of her Ether Gear. You use that red string to tie yourself to Shura. Yep, just what I've been fucking saying. No, Prince Shura and I are joined by destiny. I don't think so. You are joined by your own powers. The result? You're infatuated with Shura. And I don't know how he feels about you, but he allowed it. Well, given how we've seen Ijuna's powers work, I almost got to read Guna there. I'm like merging their names now. Given what we've seen of how Ijuna's powers work, and what we've seen of how Shura reacts to people insulting Ijuna, I think that he's also affected by it. I think. Shut up! What do you know about us? About a couple bound by destiny? But Laguna just sort of counters, your heart is crying, Your Majesty. Going back to what we saw about the heart crying back in 157. You were already tied by a bunch of red strings. You always were. They might not have tied you to the love story you dreamed about, but we were all in this fight together, tied to each other with strings of unbreakable bonds. And we see the old Oasis, with Ijuna still a member, of them all together, their friendship, our title line there with the strings of unbreakable bonds. I'm a sap for this kind of shit, as y'all know, and it works. Ijuna kind of counters, I am an Imperial soldier. I fight for Prince Shura. It must really hurt. Constantly playing a role you never wanted, just to stay alive. And both of them ready their next attacks. But now it's time for the curtain call. And Laguna throws some water at Ijuna. She sets up her strings. But the strings don't defend it this time. Or maybe they short-term do, but the strings are washed away with it. What? You washed my strings away? It's proof that your heart is weakening. No, it isn't. I'm just... When the heart is troubled, the flow of ether gets weak. Is that... I'm trying to pair that with what we learned about Empire Ether and the having to come to... how Jean countered Callum's Ether Gear by self-actualization, and Ijuna is so wrapped up in these lies that she's in love with Shura of her own volition that her ether is weakening. Now that she has now that she's kind of coming to grips with that, I'm reminded of the Sword of Shannara in the Shannara franchise. How in order to use it, you have to come to grips with your truth, whatever that is, and then you can use it to force others to come to grips with their truth, however horrifying that might be. That's kind of similar to what we're seeing with Ether Gear, especially in this arc. How, Jean was able to both overdrive and overcome Callum's Ether Gear by acknowledging what he wants to do, to be the Wind of Edens. And Ijuna's Ether Gear is failing as Laguna is presenting her with the fact that she's been manipulated by her own power without knowing it. And that's causing her to weaken. It's some good shit. This is the exact kind of storytelling I love. And anyway, Laguna gets his big attack on. Tears Wave. It is this whole 2-page spread, the circular tidal wave whacking, or Ijuna's kind of caught up in it. She doesn't actually look terribly damaged, but just the general framing of the scene makes it look like the big fight finale moment. Ijuna's kind of knocked by it up into the air, and Laguna goes on, it's time you cut that fake red string tying you to Shura. And we see a tear start to form on Ijuna's face, which gives Laguna what he needs to transform her, if he's going to do it or not. Yeah, he does. She turns into water, and the string is cut. I guess bringing Ijuna back to our side. And Ijuna reforms. He frees her from the water now that the string's been cut. Let's go home, princess. Back to Oasis. And Ijuna, I don't think she has any memory of the past 3 years. Because I don't think, like, we didn't quite get to see last time if Shiki and Rebecca have any memories of their love and hate at Ijuna's hands. Because, when next we saw them, they were approaching Shura. I don't think she has any memory of this. Laguna? Huh? Where? And she sees Moscow, just kind of giving a thumbs up. I was wondering where he was. I guess he kind of stayed behind. And Ijuna notes him, there's a strange thing over there. Moskoy. And he's just giving this blank-faced thumbs up. And then we come back to the Shattered Mirror Hall with Homura and Creed. Must you insist on following me? And Creed kind of defends himself. I told you, I'm pretty sure we're going to the same place. And then Creed runs up ahead and grabs her, which is not a great thing to do if you're crushing on a girl, but okay. Miss Homura, please stop and actually listen to me. Do not touch me, you insolent cad. Oh, sorry, and kind of backs up. I think we're working toward the same goal. We should help each other. And Homura counters, I cannot trust you. I do not even know your name. It's Creed. No, actually, and he answers, it's Seiji Hojo, a Japanese name, just like Homura. I came from the planet Oedo, just like you. And Homura's kind of shocked. You were from the Shogunate family? And that's where we leave off. Okay, I guess it's time to learn some more about Oedo. Next chapter, given how that's the cliffhanger here. I'm going to talk about that for a sec before I move on to the main crux of the chapter. This last scene, how we're just sort of dropped into this whole knowledge of a shogunate. It's very Wano, a world that's not really inspired by Japan, by feudal Japan, has this one location that is super feudal Japan. It's more than a little Wano. It's not quite the decade of buildup Wano had, but the concept of Oedo, especially as it looks like you might be getting more and more into it with Homura's final line there, does remind me of the early mentions of Wano, maybe around Punk Hazard, when Wano first started being a focus of the plot. Especially now that we have to deal with the shogunate, which I just watched the Valkyrie backstory in the anime this weekend, and I don't think that the shogunate was that family that Homura pissed off, right? I don't think that was just a regular kind of small town mayor or something. But yeah, that might be something we have to deal with going forward, given the nature of it's not continuing on that Wano comparison. Wano was a spot in the future of the Grand Line when it was first brought up, whereas Oedo is back in the Sakura cosmos. It would require backtracking to actually have Oedo drama, though this series is less inherently forward as One Piece's Grand Line is. So I guess it's possible to go back to Oedo if that's where the plot takes us. Again, this is huge thinking about the distant future from a single line, so I could be way off base here. But the fact that it's this big thing is from the Shogunate family, I think we'll at least see something of his past. What exactly drew him from Oedo, some drama on Oedo, maybe something that ties in with Justice's feud with Elsie, maybe putting the two of them together. I don't know. Why Creed or Seiji would join up with Justice. I don't know. A lot of things that could happen there, and that seems to be at least what the next chapter will open on. Then we have at the beginning a little bit of Shiki Shura, as Rebecca ends up having to leave Shiki behind to deal with Shura. Again, with similar names there. Laguna and Ijuna have that same ending. Shiki Shura have that same sh at the start. So Rebecca has to leave Shiki behind to go save Witch and find the All-Link and Laguna. I'm assuming she's going to team up with Laguna and now Ijuna to take down the All-Link system. If Ijuna does not have any if Ijuna had her memories, she could be a great asset here. If she doesn't, she's just one more player in this game. But yeah, it's good build-up for the fight, even if I don't think Shiki's going to win. And all of the focus this arc has given us on specifically with Shiki and Shura in general, and the danger of rage. Both Couchpo and Shiki's scene 10, 15 chapters ago. Couch post scene with sister and hermit a couple of chapters ago, but where she was just like, "You're thinking with your anger. Calm down. Take a step. Think what's the smartest move." And then we see Shiki's rage again here, and it's so intense, even after Witch is revealed to be alive, that Rebecca shudders. She's genuinely scared of Shiki for, I think, the first time. So I don't think Shiki's going to win this. Because if this arc is saying, rage is this inherently dangerous force that you shouldn't really rely on, kind of like Star Wars-y dark side stuff, then Shiki, as he's blinded by rage, cannot win this fight. That's not really how the story, I think, is set up to work. But that's theorizing for another time. Maybe next week, now that Shura's running out of troops, right? The Ocean Six are all kind of, out of the fight, dead or defected. And maybe Milani defected, Fabiano's off-world, Saika's dead, Nase is running away, Callum and Lyra are defeated. Ijuna has defected. It's just Shura now. Which means there's not a whole lot this arc can kind of have left. Especially now that we know that Ziggy's on Euro 1. Like, Ziggy is not going to come up here. I mean, maybe the Dark Stars might, because we only saw Ziggy. But I think Nero 66 is starting to near its end, especially with Rebecca on her way to find All Link and sort of end the arc's drama. I think it's nearing its end, but I do still think Shiki will lose this round. I think he'll lose, and then, maybe Homer and Creed will get there, and then Wise, and then also Rebecca when she comes back. Because Rebecca hasn't really had a fight this arc. She had her kind of game with Lyra, but I think she needs to help out in this final fight with Shura. But we'll see about that more next time. Let's talk about Laguna and Ijuna, which is, of course, the crux of this chapter. And it's good shit. There's a part of me that's like, Ijuna was only really... Or the concept of Ijuna as the princess was only really brought up, 2 weeks ago. But the concept of the lost princess and there being something up with Ijuna has all kind of been built up over the past 20 chapters. And this is a pretty good conclusion to it. Especially as it's just sort of, confirming the theory I've had for a couple of weeks now, that Ijuna used her own ability to, on accident, fall in love with Shura. And Laguna saves her. It's a little bit unclear how, given that the string is no longer physical. It might be that by her losing her physical body with the tears lover, because we have the image of her turning into water, and then we see the string in water and the string cuts. So I think that at a certain point, maybe the string becomes invisible and you stop being physically tied by it. But when Ijuna stops existing for a second, when she's turned into the water, the string no longer has anything to be tied to, and she's freed? I think. That's my guess. So all in all, it's a good kind of climax to Ijuna's story so far, to the story of the princess. And it contains no mentions of naked dog torture, because, good lord, that was a choice last week, and I was not big on it. But yeah, Ijuna's free. Laguna has won that fight by saving her. Shiki and Shura, round 2 is ready to go. I don't think it's going to go well for Shiki. And then we have this bit of Creed being from the ruling class on Homura's home planet. I don't know where Mashima's going with that. I really just don't have any clue, honestly. I genuinely don't think it's going to be this big thing in the future, the sort of, Wano-esque future destination. But I don't know. I have no idea where he's going with that plotline. So yeah, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. Do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!